So if you've looked at any of the news when it comes to Christianity today, this is the big thing popping up. Pope Francis authorizes blessing for same-sex couples. However, there's a certain rule that I always apply. I'm not going to these worldly sites to see what they're saying about the Pope. Because even though we do not recognize the Pope as our leader, the secular world still sees him as the Christian leader. So the way they treat him and approach him will be as a Christian, and the world hates Christianity. But for the sake of integrity, I want to know, what did the Pope actually say? So let's look at the Vatican. So when we actually look at the Vatican News website, it's worded a little differently. Doctrinal declaration opens possibility to bless couples in irregular situations. All right, so on this hand, we have worldly news sites with their bias saying they're going to straight up bless same-sex marriages. Then we have Vatican News with their bias saying, it's a possibility. So let's just go ahead and look at what the Pope actually said directly from him. So this is called the Fiducia Supplicans. This is the Pope's response to the cardinals that brought forth these questions. If you look at the third paragraph, it says, as with the Holy Father's above-mentioned response to the dubia of two cardinals, and a dubia is them presenting these questions to the Pope, this declaration remains firm on the traditional doctrine of the Church about marriage, not allowing any type of liturgical rite or blessing similar to a liturgical rite that can create confusion. All right, so now we know that it is not allowing same-sex marriages to take place in the church. That's what it's not. So let's look what it is. The value of this document, however, is that it offers a specific and innovative contribution to the pastoral meaning of blessings, permitting a broadening and enrichment of the classical perspective. Such theological reflection, based on the pastoral vision of Pope Francis, implies a real development from what has been said about blessings in the magisterium and the official texts of the church. This explains why this text has taken on the typology of a declaration. So this response from Pope Francis is mainly focused on the blessing of a couple, not the performance of a marriage in a liturgical setting. Pope Francis's recent response to the second of the 5 questions posed by the two cardinals offers an opportunity to explore this issue further, especially in its pastoral implications. It is a matter of avoiding that something that is not marriage is being recognized as marriage. Therefore, rites and prayers that could create confusion between what constitutes marriage, which is the exclusive, stable, and indissoluble union between a man and a woman naturally open to the generations of children, and what contradicts it are inadmissible. So the very first statement is, whatever we do towards these couples, it cannot even look like what we do for a normal married couple in the church. Let's go down to section 2, because I can't read this whole thing. You can all go look it up if you want to. It begins by saying the Holy Father's above-mentioned response invites us to broaden and enrich the meaning of blessings. Blessings are among the most widespread and evolving sacramentals. Indeed, they lead us to grasp God's presence in all the events of life and remind us that, even in the use of created things, human beings are invited to seek God, to love Him, and to serve Him faithfully. For this reason, blessings have as their recipients people, objects of worship and devotion, sacred images, places of life, of work and suffering, the fruits of the earth and human toil, and all created realities that refer back to the Creator, praising and blessing Him by their beauty. But here's number 9 that I think is very important. From a strictly liturgical point of view, a blessing requires that what is blessed be conformed to God's will as expressed in the teachings of the church. When we go down to paragraph 20, we see the beginning of a theological pastoral understanding of blessings. The first paragraph after this title says, one who asks for a blessing show himself to be in need of God's saving presence in his life, and one who asks for a blessing from the church recognizes the latter as a sacrament of salvation that God offers. To seek a blessing in the church is to acknowledge that the life of the church springs from the womb of God's mercy and helps us to move forward, to live better, and to respond to the Lord's will. Let's look at paragraph 27. In the catechesis cited at the beginning of the declaration, Pope Francis proposed a description of this kind of blessing that is offered to all without requiring anything. It is worth reading these words with an open heart, for they help us grasp the pastoral meaning of blessings offered without preconditions. It is God who blesses. In the first pages of the Bible, there is a continual repetition of blessings. God blesses, but humans also give blessings, and soon it turns out that the blessings possesses a special power which accompanies those who receive it throughout their lives and disposes man's heart to be changed by God. Now we roll into section 3, which actually discusses blessings of couples in irregular situations and of couples of the same sex. It reads, within the horizon outlined here appears the possibility of blessings for couples in irregular situations and for couples of the same sex, the form of which should not be fixed ritually by ecclesiastical authorities to avoid producing confusion with the blessing proper to the sacrament of marriage. So if you're still with me, what we're reading here is that this should never be confused with marriage. However, they're opening the opportunity to bless these couples. I'll get to my opinion on this once we finish reading it. In such cases, a blessing may be imparted that not only has an ascending value, but also involves the invocation of a blessing that descends from God upon those who, recognizing themselves to be the destitute and in need of his help, do not claim a legitimation of their own status, but who beg that all that is true, good, and humanly valid in their lives and their relationships be enriched, healed, and elevated by the presence of the Holy Spirit. That's where I have a bit of a problem, because no matter what, if a same-sex marriage is asking for a blessing in their life, how do you look at them and say, yes, I put this blessing on you from the name of God, and it is a blessing from God despite the fact that you are living in rebellion of God and living in sin? They might recognize they need God, but do they recognize that their marriage is in sin? This might not be what the secular news sites are trying to paint it, but it is a slippery slope that could lead to it. Now, for those that like to take this and try and make it say something it doesn't, Section 39 makes it very clear that this should not look like marriage. The people being blessed can't even wear clothes that look like marriage. They can't do gestures that look like marriage. This can't be around a ceremony. If they got married yesterday, we're not going to do it today. So they are making it clear that this will not be confused with the blessing of marriage. Such a blessing may instead find its place in other contexts, such as a visit to a shrine, a meeting with a priest, a prayer recited in a group, or during a pilgrimage. Indeed, through these blessings that are given not through the ritual forms proper to the liturgy, but as an expression of the church's maternal heart, similar to those that emanate from the core of popular piety, there is no intention to legitimize anything, but rather to open one's life to God, to ask for his help to live better, and also to invoke the Holy Spirit so that the values of the gospel may be lived with greater faithfulness. And then it goes on to say that this is the declaration and that no further guidance will be provided. So all in all, it is not anything to do with marriage. Now, as far as my opinion goes, as I mentioned, this is a slippery slope. I don't think the devil would infiltrate the church and try and jump straight to allowing the marriage. However, over course of time, this is how Satan has constantly worked with imposing false doctrines and false beliefs, slowly pushing it in. I'm all for praying for people, loving people, showing the grace of God, etc. However, I will not bless somebody living in a same-sex marriage, just like I would not bless somebody who is actively committing adultery against their wife. I would not bless somebody who is actively a serial killer. I would not bless somebody who is actively a burglar and stealing. If you would not bless these people who are actively doing it, meaning they did it yesterday and they're going to do it tomorrow, why would we look at this sin any differently? The world wants you to think this sin is different than all the other sins. And if the church allows that group of people to be blessed, you're basically saying this sin isn't like the rest. I mean, would you bless a person who is living in active pedophilia? Would you bless someone who is actively beating their children? I digress. God bless and go in peace.